Robert, you're fine. So if y'all need any assistance, this is a work in progress. We'll work through it, through the meeting. And right now we do not have a quorum. So Stephen, you're it.
I should get something for being first, right?
Yes, sir. You're first.
Does that come with a prize or something?
Yeah, you get to stay at home for at least another week.
I'll
Hey,
take it.
Sean,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Jeff and I taught a class for North Shore Families Helping Families on Wednesday, and I don't know how to log myself out of that and then log myself back in as Annie. So I'm Annie, but I'm also North Shore Families Helping Families.
So Annie, if you over your video, just right click over your video and you can click rename.
It pops up as Annie.
Oh, I see it.
I guess someone fixed it, or it fixes, I don't know. But anyway, I'm here.
Yeah, I changed you. Apparently I can change you. So, right, if y'all don't, I will change you if I know who you are. So thank you, Annie, and welcome. So if you're familiar with Zoom, just make sure you have managed participants on so that the option to raise your hand electronically is available, and please use that in order to make public comment. There's Randall.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me and see me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, great.
You do not have a quorum yet. You have Stephen.
Okay, good morning, Stephen.
You have a few guests.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Randall, why don't you tell me what you can see so it will help me to help you.
At the moment, I can see you, I can see Stephen, and I can see Jeff Arsenault.
Okay. You cannot see me sharing my screen then. That's I just have the agenda up for everyone.
I saw it when I logged in, but as soon as I clicked my camera on, it switched off to the split screen of the four of you.
Okay, that helps me. So I would just, all I was going to do is through the meeting is I could display some of the documents or critical parts of some of those documents periodically. Mostly it'll just be everybody's videos, and I'm going to turn my video off when y'all start. So it'll just be the members. If I have a point of order that I'd like to help to guide you or help y'all, I will pop my screen on. So you'll see my screen pop on at that time, because I can't raise my hand as the host, unfortunately.
I understand.
Okay.
Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Wide awake yet?
Yeah.
Can y'all see me or just hear me?
We can only hear you.
Hey, that might be a good thing. Let me see if I can figure out the audio, the video.
There you go.
Good morning.
Damn
Now we can see you. Good morning, Dr.
Great.
McKee.
Volume's down.
Good morning, good morning.
My office mate sometimes gets unruly, so you have to pardon if we have any interruptions.
Which one?
Dallas.
Oh,
Okay, yes, better.
Cool.
Okay, good.
We're watching PJ Mask.
How many
Alright,
times have you
greetings,
watched
folks.
it since quarantine?
Just checking the, can y'all hear me or just checking my microphone? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
All
we
right,
can.
greetings, folks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So at this point, we're just waiting on Mary, correct? I think I see everyone. I see Mike. All right, so
Yes, I'm calling her to see if she's gonna.
I believe
Okay.
she's on.
is she on?
I see a name pop up, Mary.
There she is. Hello, Mary.
Unmute yourself. I had the same problem, Mary. Greetings.
Good morning, Mary.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
There she is.
So now we have everyone, correct?
Yes, sir. You have a full house.
Okay, is everyone ready to begin?
Yes.
Let's give Mary
I
a
am.
minute. It looks like she's getting something situated there. All right, is everyone ready to begin today? Everybody ready?
I am.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. to our executive committee meeting for today, May the 9th. I call the meeting to order. Before I begin today's business, I'd like to take a moment and have a moment of silence for our Chair, April Dunn. As everyone is, I'm sure, aware, she passed away recently. And although I'm assuming her duties as the chair of the council in this committee, I certainly can never fill her shoes. And so I'd like to take a minute of silence out of respect for Chairwoman Dunn. Godspeed, Madam Chairwoman. Okay, so now we begin the business. I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance today. And I thank you very much for your service in your respective roles. Stephen, I'd like to welcome you back to the executive committee and thank you for agreeing to serve. Hyacinth, thank you for your service as our new vice chair. And of course, Mary and Mike, thank you very much for your continued service to the committee and to the council. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
all right. So now let's begin our work. I'd like to first acknowledge and thank all our guests for your attendance today. We're live on YouTube as well as people are participating through Zoom. So please bear with us as we may have technical difficulties throughout the meeting. We are working with some of these technologies for the first time as a committee. And so the staff is working diligently to make sure that you can hear and participate as much as possible today. And it will be a little bit different in terms of how everyone can participate because obviously we're all meeting remotely, which is a first for us. So we will be taking more time and we may have some difficulties there, but please bear with us. Having said that, let's begin our agenda. And I believe the first item we have to tackle this morning is our whole procedures for our meetings that we are to do during this pandemic phase of remote meetings. So we want to make a cohesive policy today about how we conduct these and such. So that's the first thing we're going to discuss. Sean, would you like to add anything?
I think you can discuss that first. You need to approve the summary of the March 16th
Oh,
meeting.
that's right. I'm sorry. So the first thing we need to do is a bit of housekeeping. We need to approve the minutes for the March meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those?
Yes.
Yes.
Do I have any questions about them? Any comments? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March 2020 meeting?
I make a
I'm gonna-
motion to, oh, how is that Mike?
Okay, Hyacinth, you make a
Mike
motion
and
to
I
approve?
both were there.
Go ahead,
I
Hyacinth.
I would like to motion to approve the March 16th minutes of the meeting.
Thank you. Mike, do I have a second from you
I
on
will
that?
second that.
Okay. Do I have any abstentions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you. Now, we can begin the formal discussion of our policies and procedures for our meetings. Sean, would you like to add or give us some background or thoughts now?
Yes, so I won't share my screen yet, but we had developed these options, the first link in the agenda with the protocols and procedures. These are informed by a number of different requirements. Within that document on the second page is a link to some requirements by the state for cybersecurity. And I have the link of the FBI warning of teleconferences being hijacked. And so what we try to do is strike a balance between open meetings and making sure everyone can participate, and setting it up so that we are avoiding the risk of potential hijackers. Part of that is in the registration process is we want, as an open meeting, we're letting everybody in, but making it seem like we might not if we think they're a hijacker to the meeting. This strange place we're in. If you read those requirements, and I'll ask the guest this as well, to not share our link and the password, to require people to come in individually, and we'll let them in. But we're prohibited from sharing it, broadcasting it via social media for cybersecurity reasons. The other two documents I have on there are Governor Edwards' proclamation number 30. And section 4 of that basically tells boards and councils to hold meetings, via teleconference or video conference. The Attorney General also put out guidance that basically said the legislature can change that requirement, but in the state of an emergency, the governor's proclamation gives you all the, not only the authority, but the requirement to conduct business via teleconference. Essentially, we have, and so I'll go over the 4 options. The first 2 options are related to Zoom, and it's whether people control their own mics and videos, or whether we turn them on and off. Like Hannah is the host. Hannah is our staff can do that. I've discussed with Randall, and as long as everybody turns off and on their mics, as long as the platform in terms of the table, as we see it, this is who's at the table is on the screen, who is viewable, are the members, then it's clear to Randall who can vote. And so like Mike just went off, and so Mike can't vote now. He probably went off, I'm guessing, online. I'm not watching it, but in order to vote, so you need your name and your face visible on the screen to be a participating member, to be counted in the quorum of this meeting. Our guests are asked to leave there, and I want to express my appreciation for all the guests came on and followed our these rules, and so they have their videos off and they're all on mute. If they would like to speak and add comment, the way to do that is to make sure they're participant. Mine says manage participants. I think y'all might just say participants. Click that and it'll open up a little dialog box, and underneath that dialog box are some options. And one of those options is to raise your hand. And so if someone wants to make a comment, they should raise their hand. During this meeting, Randall is chairing the meeting, but Randall may not have full access to everything because he is on a phone. So we will, if me or the other staff have information, we will pop our screens up so he can see us and do points of order information. So if there is someone with their hand raised, we will somehow let Randall know that. And then if Randall calls on anyone, be it a committee member or a guest, though that member right now we're in option 1, is asked to turn on their microphone, make sure their face is visible and speak, and then turn it off when they exit. The third option is just to do live streaming, where the members would be on Zoom, and it would be live streamed, and we would collect comments via email. And if that option is ever employed, it seems necessary to have a delay in the time of when the motion is, if a motion is made that is not clear, and give people time to email a comment in. And so the chairperson of each committee will have to determine how much time to allow for that public comment period to come in. And then I'll create option 4 as a combination, which is what we're doing today. Right now, we're doing option 1 and 3. We're doing it on Zoom. Anybody can participate via Zoom, but we're also running it on YouTube. And every meeting will be preserved on our YouTube channel. And if someone's on YouTube and they don't have access to Zoom or whatever, I know a lot of people had technical problems today because of the storm, they can, we will monitor that. We will let y'all know whether to anticipate emails from them, and it's for consideration into different votes. So that's essentially what we've worked out. And so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I will say that before, if anyone wants to ask a question, they certainly may, but I will say Sean talked about the fact that we discussed these options at length recently. And I actually sat in on a staff meeting with Sean and the rest of the staff as they tried to work out these options for us as what could work best for our meetings. And I think that we need to err on the side of the least restrictive options wherever possible. And that's my 2 cents. I think we have the ability to go more restrictive if we need to do so in the event of, say, someone not part of our community, comes in and tries to take over the meeting. We have ways to try to prevent or curtail that. But I think it's in the best interest of the public if we have the least restrictive options first and see how that goes. Does anybody else have any comment or feedback?
I do.
Okay.
I just feel like we should also give everyone different options. So the combination of the live streaming and Zoom, I think is a good idea.
I agree with you.
Because not everyone uses Zoom and
Correct.
may not know how to access it. So that everybody knows how to use YouTube and can click on the link. So that helps
right.
too.
Yes, Mary. You're still muted, by the way. There you go.
I'll get it. I agree. I think, and I like the combination of giving people options too. So I'm all for it.
I do as well. I believe that every way we can possibly make ourselves available and where everyone, the most people can view us and see us and be part of the process. I agree wholeheartedly. Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
I was muted. I was using the participants box. Mary and I both were raising our hands in there just to test it out to see if you all were able to see that. But I agree with the committee. It sounds like option 3 is the option that would allow us to do the combination that we're talking about. Would we be leaning towards option 3?
Sean, you want to elaborate on the option?
Yeah, I'll share my screen. Randy, you can't see it, but it's the first link.
I can see it.
Okay. So option 4 is a combination of option 3 plus option 1 or 2, which is what we're doing now. We're not sure when you'll get to a large meeting, you know, if y'all would want to just do option 3 or not. I feel like as everybody gets comfortable with Zoom, it probably won't be an issue. But like right now, Hyacinth, we're actually implementing option 4, which is both 1 and 3 simultaneously being run. Takes a little, I mean, our staff are tracking different stuff, but it is what it is. I mean, it's, you know, that's what it takes to get input. Because I think with Zoom, it'll allow people, I guess, instead of having to email in a comment, you know, it'll let people just, it's typical meetings, just make comments, you know, just come in and speak, which I think is easier for a number of people. So.
I'm sorry, I meant option 4.
Yeah, option 4 seems least restrictive, Stephen.
It does.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I didn't mean option 3. It's option 4. Combination.
Y'all do, I will remind the guests that to make a formal public comment, you're asked to raise your hand and be recognized by the chair. So there's 2 ways that we see as making formal public comment. People on Zoom can raise their hand, be recognized by the chair, and then unmute their mics and video feeds and speak. The people on YouTube can email in at info@laddc.org their comments. The reason why I think I'm recommending those 2 formal methods of making public comment is I'm not sure everybody can always see the chat box, and it's in the public, and people can make comments on YouTube at any time. And I think it's harder to track whether that's a legitimate public comment or just a random comment, whether it's something they want y'all to consider in making a deliberation. And so for the record, that's my other suggestion is a formal comment being one of those 2 spaces.
Does anybody have any? Go ahead, Bro.
Yeah, I have a question. So the only people that can see the comments are the staff, so we'd have to rely on y'all to be able to see to tell us that there's somebody who has a comment?
No, you can click, it might be under more or something, but you have chat, look on the bottom, it's a little chat box. I encourage y'all to click the participant box and the chat box, and y'all can see the chat box.
Okay, I can see it now.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of YouTube, Sean, we're on it today, so they're able to email us with comments, right?
Correct. Dr. McKee has her hand raised.
Yes.
So again, I put the blue hand up in the participant box. I'm trying to encourage y'all to to look at the blue hand. I've been Zooming for the past couple of weeks, y'all, so I know it's a process. But wanted to see if there's some kind of way that we can have someone monitor the public comments in the box, because what I don't want to happen is for the public to make a comment and they're not acknowledged or recognized, or that the comment kind of just sits there for forever, you know? And so typically when we do these Zoom meetings, we have someone to monitor to see that the public may have a question or they may have a comment. And, you know, so my recommendation is that we have someone monitor that and then develop a way that their comments would have the opportunity to be heard. Like, for instance, in an educational environment, when one of my scholars have a question in the chat box, typically I would monitor that chat box, and then I can stop and take a moment and look to see if someone has a comment. I'm noticing in the box now, there are 2 comments that the public has made. And so we need to try to figure out how we can acknowledge those comments that the public's making, and you know, so that it's in a manner in which they feel like they're being heard. So we can do that during the meeting, or do we wait till we hold all of the comments in the chat box at the end of the meeting? But what we don't want to do is, you know, make people feel like they haven't got an opportunity to be heard, because the comments can just kind of pile up in the box.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And as we're moving toward, you know, as we're involved in the meeting and discussions and agenda items and whatnot, it'd be difficult for us to all keep track of those as they come in. So I do believe that someone on staff is monitoring those now, aren't they, Sean? Or am I incorrect?
No, I mean, our staff, as far as I know, we all have the chat box open, and so we can
Okay.
see it. But like, so you're on your phone, can you see them?
Right. No, I don't. Unfortunately, with the phone, I don't have the chat box feature. I've looked.
Right. So if y'all, go ahead, Hyacinth, I'm sorry.
So as vice chair, I don't have a problem with monitoring that box. It's just that we have to decide when we will attend to those questions that the public has inside the box. You know what I mean? Like,
I do.
so, right. So we got to decide if we want to, you know, do it at the end of the meeting, or if we want to, you know, take a moment and say, okay, do we have any questions? Oh, I see that there's some questions in the chat box. Let's get to those, you know, keep it to the topic, or.
Well, I would say if they're pertinent to the topic we're discussing, it'd be fine, at least
Okay.
for today, to go ahead and attempt
Great.
to try to address those as we go along.
Okay,
As we
great.
get into a larger meeting, we may have to, you know,
Try to figure out how we want to put it on
figure
the
out
agenda.
a point, a 30-minute
Great.
delay or whatever the case
Great.
may be, to allow for those to be
Great.
addressed properly.
Okay,
But I
great.
think
If you know, if you guys are okay, or if I need to make a motion, if someone else make them, I don't mind monitoring the box to make sure
I think
that
it's fine to do it informally if you
Okay.
agree, and thank you for your
Okay.
help.
Okay.
But
So with that
so
being
are there-
said, we have a couple of comments now, but anyway,
That's okay. Well, I mean,
okay.
if they're
I would
pertinent to
also be
discussion,
willing to
please
monitor.
share
if
them.
that makes
Okay. I mean, I don't know if it's okay for us to, since we do have 2 comments right now, since we're on the same topic. We have a comment regarding cybersecurity conditions. And cybersecurity conditions typically is generally used for closed meetings. So why are we using the same thing that, and this is open meetings law, right? So why are we overly concerned about cybersecurity if in fact this is an open meetings law? I mean, open, you know what I'm trying to say, open meeting.
I do. And the fact that this is an open meeting, why are we worried
Yes.
with
Why are we worried
closed
about that?
meeting rules? Right. Okay. And that's a valid question. Sean, would you like to elaborate as to why you felt like this particular meeting needed these precautions,
I mean,
and why you're recommending that all our meetings have them?
I don't know if it's how I feel. It's, these are the requirements, you know, the cybersecurity requirements that we were issued once the hijackers started taking over meetings, to try to make sure we did not invite that in to your space. And So, you know, if we're gonna have a password to a meeting, then, and we shouldn't post the Zoom links, you know, on public platforms, or, you know, we need to try and make sure we do things to protect people just jumping in and taking over the meeting, and they can. I think we're going to, moving forward, just have people register via Zoom, and that way they'll just go straight to the waiting room before they come in. But we are in a catch-22. That's what I try to explain is, can we restrict anybody from coming to an open meeting? No, we can't. But we should take precautions in how we advertise and set up the meeting as to make it difficult, or, you know, more steps for someone who wants to come in and hijack the meeting.
And by that, you mean like random people from the internet, not people from our community per se, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know, you know, there could be someone we don't know from the community. So, I mean, there's someone on this call that, you know, I don't know if I know everybody. We can't screen them that way, but we can put steps in place that it's almost like, you know, do you have a door on your house and do you lock it occasionally? Right? It doesn't mean you're not going to open it up when there's a party, but it makes someone who's not invited in or not wants to come in, you know, just puts one more step in their way. So that's all. I mean, we're not trying to prevent anybody. I mean, I believe everything we've done is make it so that people have the most access to participate as possible.
That's what we want.
Well, that's what we've done. But we also have to, I mean, these are the rules we've been given.
And these are the FBI rules that we're looking at.
These are state rules, basically.
State rules.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is from Department of Health.
Yes.
Okay. Which, for everyone who may or may not know, we are technically under the Department of Health as far as our classification.
So Randall, Hyacinth has her hand raised, and Liz has her hand raised as well, electronically.
Yes, Hyacinth, and then Liz after Hyacinth.
So, you know, not to refer to any other state meetings that I've been Zooming on in the past couple of weeks. I just got off of a Zoom meeting yesterday, and it was not a registration. Am I muted? Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you.
It was not a registration, okay? So it was a link that was sent out to the public because it's an open meeting. It is a state licensing board, and the link is sent out, and anyone can attend that meeting because it is an open meeting. So we were not required to register for to participate in that meeting. So I'm not sure if we need more clarification on that, or where this is kind of coming from, because sometimes we can get caught up in the language. I just want to let you guys know that what's being practiced. I just got out of a state meeting yesterday, and it wasn't a registration. It was actually, here's the link. You can join by phone or by audio, and you just jumped in. You didn't register for it because it's a public meeting. So I'm not sure. And if you're concerned about the hijack, like I'm starting to hijack the meeting now because I'm over talking, maybe there's something that we can do to adjust the controls. Like what they did was everyone was on mute, and when you were acknowledged by the chair, you were unmuted. You know what I mean? But it wasn't a registration.
That way. Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't a registration for an open meeting. And there's some comments here too, public comments. But if you want to move ahead, Chair, I don't mean to hijack.
Well, I think Liz had a question or comment.
That's Liz,
So
yes, I'm saying Liz.
I'll
yes.
acknowledge Liz and have her opportunity to
Yes.
share her comment.
Can you hear me, Randall?
Yes, I can, Liz.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I just wanted to reiterate what Hyacinth said, and I appreciate that, Hyacinth. And when I'm reading the cybersecurity ES 17 from the state, it sounds like this was written for closed meetings. It does not sound like it was written for open meetings. And when you have an open meeting, obviously, in everything you've ever done, it's open to the general public. And when you do a registration, you are not only, siphoning through who's going, which is fine. But the problem is that you don't give the opportunity for those who aren't able to register, for those who don't even know the meeting is happening until the last minute. So for instance, like today, there's people out there that are watching on YouTube that wish they could be on the actual meeting so they could be commenting, and they can't because they weren't allowed in because the link was not public. But I just wanted to express that, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your feedback. Okay, does anyone have any comment for this issue of our committee? Hello?
Randall, you're muted.
Okay, thanks. I don't know how that happened. All right.
Robert's hand is up. Robert Patty's hand is up.
Yes, Robert.
Hey, Howie, I just have just a comment to make about the discussion that's going on now, and the fact that people had to register through Eventbrite to get access to the meeting. I noticed that on the agenda, the cutoff was at 6 o'clock. I didn't even register with Eventbrite until close to about 8 p.m. So it was still issuing tickets. So a concern whether or not a deadline like that would conflict with a meeting. I mean, it was still allowing people to get access. And second, this is no different with the registration than going to say, speak at a legislative meeting or to provide public comment at a BESI meeting. You do register with a card, whether you are for or against, or just to leave a general comment. So the fact that you go through a registration step, I do not see as to be any hindrance for anyone to be able to participate in this meeting.
Thank you for your feedback there, Robert. We appreciate it. And we did allow for the registration right up until 9 a.m. this morning, even though we did set a deadline of I believe it was 6 p.m. yesterday. You were able to register up until just before this meeting. So, and I apologize for that miscommunication, but you were able to register until 9. And as I said, that we want least restrictive practices. And so this was our first time doing a public meeting with, we've done them before as a, like for me, especially with the disability and distance, I was able to do meetings remotely. We've done that before, but to do this where everyone is available and able to speak through this medium is our first time. And so we were developing processes and procedures just for today, just to get to this meeting so we could have this robust discussion of how the policy moving forward for these. And so how we handled today, I'll take responsibility for the fact that it wasn't smooth, but we do want the least restrictive process moving forward where it allows the most communication, not the least, and the most participation that we can. Anyone else have any comment? Yes.
Randall,
I'm sorry, Mary,
I
you
guess
unmuted
I'm
first.
going
Let's Mary
to
go
develop
first.
where this would look like, and that.
I'm sorry, your mic cut out.
So I
What was that?
thinking of, I was working on developing a motion for us to move forward with accepting the option 4 without registration, with a mechanism for hand raising and getting recognized by chair, so that we're not talking over each other as this
Right.
moves on.
We want everyone to be able to communicate, succinctly and not have people talking over one another and such. And so that's a good point to make, is that we want to make sure that you're able to have hand raised and be acknowledged by the chair.
Christy Cormier has her hand raised. Right.
Yes, Christy.
I don't see a problem with the registration. I can absolutely understand why that would be something that you guys would want and like to have in place. I would, although, recommend that a registration deadline be extended to the start of the meeting, or so many minutes or time into the start of the meeting, just to ensure that, because notification is going out over email and social media, and lots of people aren't continually checking that. And especially when it's given maybe in a 24-hour notice when there's an emergency meeting or things of that nature, it might be better and more accessible for people in the community who are interested in this to do it kind of at the last minute. Because lots of times you think, I can't go to this meeting. I want time, stuff changes, and you're like, hey, now I can do this, so let me get on. That's the only thing, is I would hate for you guys to limit people in any way for all the unique circumstances our families seem to have.
Thank you, Christy. I essentially agree. I think that people have busy lives, and we all certainly have, given the uniqueness of our situations. Now, I mean, I think least restrictive options are best. We have the ability to be more restrictive if the need arises, but I think if everyone's participating and gets familiar with the Zoom and YouTube options, I think that least restrictive is probably our best bet to at least begin our processes that way. And if we need to restrict, we have the ability to do so. Does anyone have anything to add? Or
We have a comment by staff, a recommendation
Yes, Dr. Makin.
that we can set up an auto response Zoom registration. And so as soon as someone registers with a name and email, it would automatically send them a link and password to join the meeting.
I mean, that's what was done in this case.
So they won't have to wait. They won't have to wait on staff to email them. It'll be like an automatic.
Yeah, I'll do whatever y'all decide. I will caution y'all, based on the cautions of where these cybersecurity requirements came from, is nothing that was done prevented anybody from coming into the meeting or listening to the meeting or having access to hear the meeting, nor will it ever be that way. I have to require passwords, and I can't post Zoom links over public platforms, social media. I mean, if y'all say they all want to do that, and LDH finds that I'm doing that, and they can, then I have to argue with them about keeping my Zoom license or going to get another platform, which, I mean, I'll do whatever y'all want. Just nothing that has ever been done has restricted anybody. And I'm actually been monitoring Eventbrite to make sure if anybody registered while the meeting's occurring, they will get pulled in. So, but I would caution y'all to do an auto response, for the fact that it would make people think it would, if someone wants to come in and hijack y'all meeting, then they might take that step. That's my only concern.
Did we do that in this case? In today's meeting, was it automatically sent out, or did staff monitor it?
I sent out, like I would get an email every time someone would register, and within, I don't know, I sent out maybe 6 emails, the same email to different registrants within the hour about of when they registered. Like it wasn't automatic, but I tried not to delay it. Like the first group, because we announced it, maybe it was a couple hours, I had to like type up the email or type up the response. But after that, some of the participants I want to thank, I didn't even know how to set up all the different features of it. But then I was just sending out, but we won't even do Eventbrite. Our staff figured out we could have people like register or whatever through Zoom, and they would just go into a waiting room. It's the same.
Okay.
So it will be different, but I mean, I think making it seem like there are steps in the process will deter people, hijackers, from coming in the meeting. That's all. We're not screening anybody. We're not preventing anybody from coming in. We're not doing anything to deter it. So just so y'all know that.
So essentially for us, as Robert was saying earlier in his comment, the registration you're asking for is simply a way of monitoring and tracking who's in this meeting, basically.
No, actually not. It's actually not even that, Randall.
Okay.
It was just to give the appearance, if you really want to know, that we were doing something that might prevent a hijacker from getting in. Because I really can't. I know. Sent you an email. It's an open meeting. Legally, I can't prevent anybody from coming in. I'm not going to screen anybody out. A hijacker could go through all these steps. They're just likely to. That's all. I mean, that's the only reason we even did it, was to give the appearance to a hijacker that they might not get in. So that's it.
Hyacinth.
Can we allow Mary? Mary was making a motion, and Mary, I don't know if Mary still was wanting to make that motion, but she was trying to make a motion on this issue.
And Robert,
she's ready.
And Robert has his hand raised as well.
Yes, Robert.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to run over Mary, but I just wanted to clarify just my earlier comment. I understand that we're in completely new territory with doing this, and there's guidance coming in from all perspectives. I know that town meetings where I live now have gone online, and you go through, I don't want to say a vetting process because that makes it sound restrictive, but it's just to verify you are who you are, that they do have a name with a face. And like I said, I just didn't take any issue with Eventbrite and knowing that, hey, I do have somebody that wants to participate. So.
Thank you, sir, for your feedback. Is there any other? I can't see the chat box again, so is there any other comment?
Well, I want to make one correction to what I said. It's not really a correction, but it's someone registered with initials and an email that was a generic email that did not indicate any name on it. I called someone who I figured out who that probably was, and I was correct. And I just wanted to verify that I had a name, because I will still let the person in, but I would have been concerned. I would have tried to figure out if we needed to do something to prevent that person from, if necessary, if it wasn't a friendly, I guess, someone who wanted to just hijack the meeting.
All right.
But I did have that concern, but I would have not been able to prevent them from coming in. I was just curious of what I had to prepare for, or what I would prepare Randall for. That's all.
Thank you both for comments. Are there any others?
No others where Mary has her motion.
Okay, Mary, would you like to make your motion?
I was changing it around a little bit. It sounds like it's more of a sign in and not registration, if that makes people feel
That's kind
better,
of what I was
because-
getting at earlier. I think the intent was to make it where we knew who, and part of that was because we didn't know about the Zoom waiting room availability, that function. And so it was just our way to try to make, in my mind, make sure that we knew, just like we have sign-in sheets at our regular meeting, and we know who, when we meet in person, we know who's in attendance. It's kind of what I anticipated the Eventbrite being, was just so we'd have an idea who would be present. Again, as Sean has relayed, I don't think that it certainly serves no security function. The meeting is open. So
I think I'm ready to make the motion. If y'all, my motion would be to accept option 4 with sign-in requirement, or with to have sign-in for the meetings, with mechanisms for hand raising and getting recognized by the chair, and monitoring of chat and questions from YouTube for public comment.
I think we can probably, I agree with the wording, except I think we can probably remove the word requirement, because we're just,
Okay.
we're asking for sign in. We're not, it's
Sign
not really required.
Mary, can you repeat your whole motion again, please?
Yes, please.
Okay, I had to make a motion to accept option 4 with sign-in. I don't know what to say about sign-in, with sign-in feature,
Encouraged.
and have mechanism for hand raising and getting recognized by chair, and monitoring chat and questions from YouTube for public comment.
Does anybody have anything to add?
Stephen's hand is up.
Yes, sir, Stephen.
Would that be registration through Eventbrite or Zoom?
No, it would be Zoom. We were unaware
Okay.
at the time we started setting the parameters up for this particular meeting that Zoom had the function for, well, I believe what they call a waiting room, where you
Yeah.
would sign in through Zoom and be automatically put into that. So that, my understanding is, moving forward, you would register in Zoom and you would be in Zoom.
So between the Zoom sign-in and the waiting room, that should address any issues with hijacking, or while making it as least restrictive as possible. Is that my understanding?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Okay. So Mary has presented her motion. Do we have any other comments? I believe it's up on the screen now. Okay. Do we have any other comments?
I don't see any other comments on the screen. Wait, hold on. I think one just came through. No, that's it. I don't see any other comments. Let me
Okay.
check.
Do you, the committee, have anything else to add before we move forward?
This is Stephen. I don't see
Yes.
the, while Sean is sharing his screen, I don't see the raise hand button. Can somebody offer?
Yeah, when Sean shares his screen, it disables our, you have to go back to participants. Yeah, there it is. And so he put it back up. But if you
Okay,
click
well.
participants, it will come back up.
Okay,
Okay.
would that be an issue during a meeting?
I mean-
Hyacinth, you're muted. Okay.
when he shares his screen again. It should not, when we hit participants, it should allow us to see everyone in that chat box. He'll
Okay,
try
well-
it out and we'll try it again.
So
Okay, well,
Robert-
my comment was just to say that I would also volunteer to read any comments or anything like that. If
Thank you.
If the vice chair is not able to do that,
Thank you,
putting
sir.
that
I
out there.
appreciate that.
I'll be willing to do it.
My computer decided to up and die a few minutes before the meeting, so hopefully I'll have, the next time we do this, I'll have that fixed. But that's why I'm on the phone today. But and so I cannot, on the phone, I cannot see the participant box. But thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much.
Robert Patty has his hand raised, and
Yes, sir, Robert.
Just a comment. I'm assuming we're about to take a vote here, but I have a concern about the public comments being read as during the course of meeting member or council discussion. In regards to Robert rules, public comment is typically taken when a vote is about to occur or at designated time at the end of the meeting. How is that reflected in this motion, and how would that carry on if this was adopted?
Correct. It's actually not reflected in the motion. What would happen, and I've allowed it today because executive committees are often a little more fluid than our formal meetings, at least in the way we communicate, and we don't usually have this much public participation at these as we do today. We have some, obviously, but today we have the entire community watching us on YouTube and able to comment. And we also have quite a few in Zoom today, more than our room could normally accommodate for our executive committee meetings between our regular council sessions. But the way I approach it, Robert, is as the chair of both this committee and the council, as we get into robust discussion of issues and the topics and community being involved electronically, I'm erring on the side of we would probably collect comments and have, before a vote, be able to read those comments and share them before a vote is taken.
With all respect, I mean, Robert's rules and should still apply. You do have structure for a meeting for a reason, and with laxing those orders, it seems to bring about disorder. So I'll just leave my comment there.
Point taken. Thank you, sir. Does anybody have anything to add? Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I think that this is going to be a challenge no matter how we do it. So, and I respect Robert's opinion very much. But I think the best way forward and least restrictive at the moment is what I want to attempt to try. And so when we have a group of comments, I would like to address those. And if we have to give some delay of 20 to 30 minutes to be able to collect those and go through them, then we have mechanisms to do that. As the chair, I can certainly do that. Any other, and Madam Vice Chair is chair of the membership and selection committee, you have that authority as well. So, and all our other chairs as well. So, and if we see it's a problem, we certainly can institute our Robert's Rules of Order as needed.
Randall, you do have people watching on YouTube, so I'm not sure if y'all want to vote to delay this, the vote on this motion until such time as they can comment at info@laddc.org.
We do, yes, sir. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, let's, in order to give time for public comment, and let's delay the vote on this particular motion until, and they will be reread. Yes, Hyacinth.
We have a comment. Please reread the motion. The motion that Mary made. Can, Sean, can you reread it?
Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the right one. Okay, what I typed was the motion by Mary. It wasn't seconded, by the way, Randall.
Right.
For the council to use option 4 with guest sign-in feature on Zoom and have mechanism for hand raising to be recognized by the chair. Comments in Zoom chat and YouTube shall be monitored during discussion of a motion for consideration by the committee.
Okay.
You do not have a second on it.
Okay.
And my recommendation, because you have people on YouTube, is to table the vote
Yes, sir.
until such time as comments can come in.
I agree. Should we go ahead and get that second though? Yes, Hyacinth.
I second it, but I wanted to make a modification, but I guess I can't do that until after.
No, you can. I mean,
You can go, you can suggest it.
right.
I just wanted to make sure that when people are registering, registering to get part of the meeting, that they're not being denied access. People are being denied access as we speak right now. We have a council member in the chat box saying that someone's trying to gain access to this very meeting right now, and they cannot. And that's the issue that we don't want people to experience. And
Correct.
so we need to probably, Mary has a great motion, but we just want to make sure that people are not being, excluded.
Sean, do you have anything to add to that? As far as,
I think when we do the Zoom, it will let them come in during the middle of the meeting. Hannah, if you want to, will it not?
We have someone right now that's trying to get in and she's not being allowed in. And I really understand the need to table the motion, but I am concerned that we're going to be running into a train wreck if we don't, at least come up with some type of framework so that people won't feel excluded. And that's my biggest concern. Folks want to attend and they can't get in right now.
understood. And Sean, why is that exactly? Why is that occurring for that particular?
I mean, I don't really know at this moment, be honest with you.
I could answer that if you would like.
Yes, Hannah.
It's because it's using Eventbrite. If you were to do the registration with the auto response via Zoom, that wouldn't happen, because even during the meeting, someone could still click the link, type their name in, and it would send them all the information to join the meeting automatically.
Thank you for that clarification, Hannah.
So maybe in Mary's motion, we need to include that the registration, or I even hate the word registration, but being able to sign up will go through Zoom. That would be the only platform to make sure that it's inclusive. That we won't use any other forms like Eventbrite or,
Correct.
that
We'll
we are going to
exclusively
use it.
Zoom as our portal of preferred
until
portal.
such time the executive committee makes another decision, but we will use Zoom. Or,
I think
right.
that's wise.
or
Yeah,
not use any other platform that excludes
it
people.
excludes members from participation. Correct. I agree. So going to make sure that's in the motion. It looks like Mary's a little preoccupied at the moment. Hello, Hayden.
Oh,
Hi.
bro.
He wants to play ball.
Hey,
Yeah, I'm fine with changing to make the amendment to the motion to make it where we're gonna be able to have people sign in. Sure, I guess if we're using Zoom, I need to say that.
yeah, I'm not sure what clarity needs to happen, because it says use a sign-in feature on Zoom, and my understanding is that will allow that to happen. So I think, I mean, from my understanding, that takes care of it, but if you want to,
That's fine. It's just that what we don't want is for someone to try to get in during the meeting, like someone's doing that now and they can't get in the meeting. We don't want that. So I don't know if, I know Zoom, I Zoom with 46 students. My link is out there. They can come in and join. They just get the link and the password and they get in. So I just, don't want people to not be able to join, when it's a public meeting.
And we share, you and I are in agreement. I think we all share that view that we want the least restrictive way to for everyone to participate, and it looks like Zoom is the best way. So do we need a second to this motion before we?
I second.
Okay, I second. And we will table the actual vote until near the end of this meeting today to allow for public comment for those members of our community who are using the YouTube option today, which has our email address. Okay. Yes, Hyacinth. You're muted.
Can we also ask people if they're having sidebar conversations to utilize the private feature and not have sidebar conversations during the meeting, because everyone can see it. If you want to have a sidebar, please utilize the private option.
Thank you for making that clarification, Madam Vice Chair. I can't see the chat box, so I didn't know that was happening. So thank you for bringing that
Randall,
to everyone's attention.
I think formally you need a motion and a vote to table it for later.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. That's going to be my next question.
Yeah, just procedurally. Thank you.
Okay, so do I have a motion to table this motion until the end portion of today's meeting?
I'll make that motion that we table the vote until all the comments via email have been gathered.
Correct, and I'll make that clarification. This is strictly to allow for public comment to be made on this issue by our community who is using our YouTube option today. So we have that motion from Stephen. Do we have a second to table this motion until the end of today's meeting?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Mike seconds. Do I have any abstentions? Any objections? Hearing none, this motion is tabled. Okay. So we move on to our next agenda item, correct? All right, and that would be our discussion of the RFP for the education. I don't have my agenda immediately in front of me. Can you read that off for me?
Hold on, I'll have to pull it up. Yo, Sean can put it up. Sean, please share your screen.
Sean, can you put it up there for everyone? Thank you, sir. So now our next item, for consideration today is the consideration of the Louisiana Department of Education having issued a request for proposals for educational training and direct support to families of children and youth with disabilities. So that has been recently done, and we put this on the agenda to discuss because we had a CAN action alert, which I believe is number 4, for our members to contact the Department of Education and Bessie to support funding for families helping families regional resource centers. Sean, do you have anything to add to start off the discussion today?
I mean, nothing I don't think anybody has already raised, but this is a significant shift in how the information and support is provided to parents. It's not clear to me why Families and Family Centers or, it wasn't known to me or the council that there were issues with the services being provided by Families and Families under the previous contract with the Department of Education. I mean, that issue was never raised. Families and Family Centers have a 30-year history, 20 years with the Department of Education. To me, the most significant part of the RFP, and I'll go back to 3 years ago with the RFP, it was not necessary for them to write an RFP 3 years ago, and they could contract with centers, individual centers, to continue providing the supports and services, and it'll be a one-stop shop for parents without an RFP. So at any time, this is troubling. During the response to COVID-19, to have people have to even process what this means and respond to it, and is troubling. There's a clause in the RFP and there's state law that indicates that an RFP can be pulled if it's not in the best interest of the state. And I think that's the core question. That's what, when we issued the action alert, I think that was the core question I think needs to be asked is reducing funding. And there's no way I can see this would, even if all the Families and Family Centers collaborated to get this, the requirements in it will reduce funding that those centers have to provide direct services and trainings to people. And so I think the core question is that in the best interest of the state? Since the Department of Education is under a blackout period and they will not discuss it, the RFP itself, I think it's significant to discuss that they're choosing to not fund Families and Family Centers, or there will be reductions in how much money and this is from the conversations of Families and Families directors, how much, even if they did get it, if anybody got it, it would negatively impact the amount of resources they have available for direct services to family members.
Quick question. Why exactly would that be the case? Why would, if it switched to, and it's just for clarification, if it switched from the current model to a model where they all collectively got together, or however they chose to do it, and sought the funding themselves, why would it be reduced as opposed to what they're receiving now?
Good question. So currently, individual contracts are written for centers. And so they're responsible for their region, deliverables within their region. This contract would start off with a state organization. So any coordination or organization So and I have heard some of the centers are thinking about doing it, which is great, to have something. But if one center takes on it and is the organization, they're going to have some administrative and organizational strains placed on them. There are insurance requirements of staff and other things in there that are not in their current contracts. It's not in the current, it wasn't in the previous RFP. So they're going to pay money just on insurance for things that they're not currently required to off the top. And so then what will be left to subcontract out with other families and family centers would not be the full $510,000 a year to divvy up across the state. I mean, that's a short answer. I mean, there's some families directors on the line that they might have other information or perspective.
Sure. Let me ask one other clarification question. You mentioned that it's not a requirement right now to have those overhead costs, right? That these would be added costs because of the way the new RFP would be worded. Am I understanding that correctly?
There's some requirements within the RFP. They require a whole slew of insurance that is not currently required.
And I was about to ask that they're not currently required under the current rules, correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, I'm certainly open to any discussion of anything anyone wants to share, the committee first and then the public. Yes, Mary.
I just wondered what the options are. I mean, I know we're all reaching out to Bessie, but so if they did take the RFP off the board, then how would that look, or what would be different? Are we asking for the right thing, I guess?
You asking me?
I mean, I don't know. We don't want them to do it this way, but I don't know what options we have.
Yeah, so first, Randall, Karen Scallon has her hand raised. I don't know if you want me to try and answer Mary's question.
Well, let's maybe these people in our public who have knowledge can give us some feedback that helps Mary and the rest of us as well. So, Karen.
Hi, thank you for giving me an opportunity to ask my question and just a statement or two. I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly that with this RFP, no Families Helping Family Center individually or jointly would be precluded from responding to the RFP. And next thing I want to ask is, what happens if the RFP is pulled to the request for the extra $500,000 for the Families Helping Family Centers to the legislature? My understanding that money was going to be in case they lost the SDE contracts. Would that 500 request still be on the table? What would it be used for? And if I'm mistaken about that, please let me know. I also understood that there was some concern about some staff requirements in the contract as well, but staffing requirements, I do know, in my experience, having worked with FHF in the past, and maybe Susan, Ryan, or any of the other directors that can be on can speak to what the situation is now, but I know in the past that there's been other contracts that FHF has had with staffing requirements. So I don't really see where that's different or new. So if you can answer me that about would Families Helping Families in any way be precluded from going after the RFP? And what happens to the 500,000 that's on the table? Those were my questions where that was concerned. And I also think it would be helpful to get a breakdown of what exactly the extra cost would be and what the actual figure would be of a reduction to the Families Helping Families centers
There's
if they applied for that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, would you like to take a stab at answering her questions? I do think that on the question of can the centers respond to the RFP and apply, I believe they can, correct?
Of course. Each independently, right? I mean, or they can do it collectively with one being the single organization receive the money.
Right.
I mean, I don't know the cost of those insurance requirements. Maybe one of the other Families directors can answer. I mean, Karen asked a number of questions. There some of the Families directors had shared concerns about the way the staff requirements are listed, the qualifications, credentials, et cetera. As y'all know, Family Centers are staffed by family members, many of whom are on this call have or continue to work at Family Centers. And part of that is building capacity of those families and others, and I mean, sometimes there's a learning curve as with all of us, but the perspective is one from a parent, and I've found that they have been qualified to guide another parent through the process. As it relates to the $500,000, I think that's on the next agenda item, so I would defer. I would suggest y'all defer that for later.
It will be discussed later, yes, so we will defer that topic.
Yeah, I don't know if I get all the questions Karen mentioned, but.
Yes, I think so, Sean. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. All right, so do we have any other comments? I know we said we have some FHF directors and maybe some employees in our audience today. Does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to add to this discussion? Mary, as education chair, do you have anything particular you'd like to add or questions you'd like to ask? Okay. So Sean, what exactly are we needing to address here with this item? I mean, we obviously wanted to have this discussion and get this information out, but what in particular, I guess back to Mary's original question, what in particular can we or should we consider doing on this issue as a body?
Well, I think the first thing is Hyacinth was wondering like what should be the best step, and I deliberated with a number of people about what should be the best step, and it's clear the best step is to suggest LDOE pull the RFP. If it's going, what's that?
Excuse me, sir, would you mean to suggest it in the form of the council writes a letter or the executive committee writes a letter? On behalf of the council.
Yeah. And to just, I felt like it was necessary to issue the alert because it is a drastic change in the support structure to parents. But a formal response or action by the executive committee, I think, y'all are the council. And so I think that would be one step. I have heard, my other plan B was, right, like try and help make Friends and Family Centers as whole as possible if the department chooses to go forward with this. I have heard that some centers are thinking about doing a collaborative proposal, and that would be awesome. I still think whoever does it's going to have some costs, some administrative cost unnecessarily added to it, and some other things. But I mean, so one of my thoughts was for the council to take it. I really don't want to do that to us or anybody else, but I was trying to figure out, like, if we just ate the cost, which would be ridiculous in my mind, but to keep the centers whole with their funding.
As budget director, let me ask you this question. Can we afford to eat the cost?
Well, unfortunately, we've had, without all of our in-person activities, as I've communicated with particularly you and Hyacinth, it's, we have a lot of funds that in contracts that are not being utilized. All of our trainings, from partners to our customized employment, our early intervention. I mean, we had y'all aren't traveling. If you remember, I was worried about running out of money in travel. Well, now we're going to have plenty. So that's not the issue. The issue is really, it's twofold. It's one is a staff issue. Is like, we would have to assume some stuff, which we could figure out, how to make that happen, or even contract with somebody to make some of it happen or something. But it's not the best model. I'm just being honest with you. It's just, I was just trying to figure out how to make it whole. We have some family centers kept whole. That's all.
My concern is that your staff is already, you included, y'all are already, juggling a lot with all the fluidity we have going on with staff and such. So that's my concern, is to get too overloaded, both with staff time and financially, because even though we do have an underperformance, or we have more cash than we anticipated, it's due to unique circumstances. And if the RFP, if we were to, let's say it's accepted and we do become the conduit to administer those for the FHFs, if that cost is continual though, because how long does this RFP have effect? How long is it?
Hyacinth has her hand raised.
Yes, Hyacinth.
It's actually 3 years, but also I wanted to make sure we recognize a council member has been trying to make a comment on this issue, and she's on the phone, so she's unable to do it through this platform. So I don't know if we have opportunity to allow Crystal White to make a comment on this matter.
If she's able to, yes.
Hey, it's Crystal. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Crystal, we can. You have the floor.
Okay. If this is going back, but I really was trying to get this comment in whenever it was appropriate. But Sean, I have a quick question. Do you know if for LDOE to do this RFP, did they have any data, or were they told that anyone was dissatisfied with the work or anything like that for them to have put out this RFP? Do we know if they had any data to support any of these decisions for this RFP? That's just my only question. Thanks, guys.
Crystal, I think that is an excellent question. As I mentioned, like, there was no notice given to the council or anyone else that there were concerns of Friends and Family Centers not meeting their deliverables. Every year, every state contract, like we have contracts, right? So with every vendor, we have to determine whether they met our deliverables. And y'all know, I mean, we've had concerns over the years, once or twice with different centers or different vendors. You know, I mean, our goal is to make it happen and make it work. But centers have 30 years of data from multiple agencies, including the council, including Department of Education, including Office of Public Health, including OCDD or LGEs, that to my knowledge, none of them have been tagged that they did not deliver what they were required to under a contract. And as it goes to the council's core mission, the council's core mission is to have family-oriented and family, you know, and services directed by the people who deliver them, who receive them. I'm sorry. So y'all, and for the council not to have been given notice was actually one of the most stunning things to me about this. And so Crystal, I think your question is right on to the core of it. Yeah.
Yeah, my question was more not so much the deliverables, but do we know if they did any like consumer satisfaction surveys, the Department of Ed, to the families directly, or, you know, I would wonder if there was something else driving this with more data.
I can't speak to everything the Department of Education has or hasn't done. I mean, that's beyond my scope.
Well, is this no, Karen Scallon has her hand up. Is that correct?
And
Okay.
Susan has her hand up.
Okay. Let's go to, since Karen spoke previously, let's go to Susan first, and then let's go to Karen. You have the floor after Susan. Susan, you have the
Good
floor.
morning.
Good morning.
Susan Reen, Families Helping Families Southwest. I can kind of answer Crystal's question. I don't believe, and I'm not exactly sure if I'm answering it correctly, but I know that there was a family survey that y'all may have seen that went out from the department that the Families Helping Families Centers actually helped push out. And I can't remember, I apologize. I can't remember the specific questions, but I don't believe it had anything to do with how well the centers were performing with the specific Department of Ed contracts. It was more a general survey about what parents wanted to see, what families need, more training or more one-on-one or things like that. And some of those, some of the information that they receive from those surveys is mentioned in the RFP. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Crystal, but that's my best shot.
Thank you, Susan. We
You're
appreciate that input. Before that, may I ask you a question quickly, Susan? Before that survey that you mentioned, were there any indications that you're aware of as an executive director of Families Helping Families? Were there any other indications publicly or privately of dissatisfaction by the department of your center in particular, or any others that you might be aware of?
I can only speak for our center, and
Correct.
I haven't received any indication that there was any issues with our particular center, nor have I heard of other centers having issues, but you know, I don't know everything.
I understand.
Regardless of what people think about me, I don't know everything.
Thank you for the input. I just
Sure.
wanted that perspective since you were with us today. And thank you.
Karen Scallon has her hand raised.
Karen, you're next. You have the floor.
Thank you. Just a point, does this necessarily have to be about not liking the centers, or is this an issue of just wanting to contract with one entity? Because at least in the past, I know that that was something that SDE wanted. I don't know, Susan can speak to more of the history of what SDE looks for now, but I know in the past, they just really wanted to only have to deal with one contract. And
they prefer one contract and one entity, is that correct?
In the past, they did. They talked
Okay.
about this years ago.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add? Any questions, any comments? Hearing none. Is this, I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around if there's something we need to vote on here. Because the RFP has been issued, correct? Sean?
Yep. It's issued, response date is for proposals, I believe is June 8th. And it will be decided upon, on, I believe it's June 22nd.
Okay.
So that's, you know, a month from now.
Yes. Hi.
Hyacinth has her hand raised, and Christy Cormier also has her hand raised, Randall.
Oh, Chris, I'll let Christy, I'll defer to the
Christy,
public and then I'll
okay.
make my comment.
Sure. Thank you. Hyacinth. Christy, you have the floor.
I would just like to recommend that the DD Council itself come out with a statement. And because I know right now Lacan is doing it, but the DD Council itself come out with a statement and making public comment at any Bessie meetings or anything of that nature where this is being discussed as the governing body over making recommendations to our government entities on how policies, RFPs, all that stuff do affect families. You know, it's great to have Lacan doing it, and it's great to have individual families, but having the Developmental Disabilities Council itself making this kind of comment and doing it, I believe is something that needs to be done. And that's what I would encourage y'all to do.
Okay. Thank you. Hyacinth.
I just wanted to get some, I guess, some understanding, going back to Crystal's comment. I'm just wondering what was the fuel behind this? That's number one. And then number two, by awarding a single entity this $1.5 million over a 3-year period, how would that, I'm just trying to, I guess, figure out what we can do. I don't, it's an RFP, so we don't have the, I guess, right to tell DOE that they have to pull the RFP down. I mean, what grounds do we have? And that's what it gets kind of murky. I think it kind of speaks to what Mary is saying, like, what would our position be? I mean, our position would be to just have the RFP removed, but on what grounds? I think that's where it's getting kind of in the weeds. Like, what's the position of the DD Council? I mean, we have no control over
the department.
Yeah, of RFPs being issued. I'm just trying to see.
No, I agree with you. I think that I see the issue pretty clearly thanks to all the comments, but the issue before us as a committee now is how do we address this? What's needed from us to address this, if anything, of this situation? We have had a Lacan alert. We are, aware that it will be a problem for, or certainly a new territory or scenario for our family centers if this, goes through, because it has different requirements from the existing contracts they're under. So we're aware of that. But exactly what we as a body and as a council can do with regards to the issue, I'm trying to wrap my head around, just as you are. Anybody have anything to add?
We have a comment from Tamara. She has a question. Was it time for the RFP? Was the contract ending?
Sean, you want to answer that?
So 3 years ago, the department issued RFPs for friends and families, well, for regional support of families. And Some centers were awarded 3 years, some were awarded 1 year with 1 year extensions. And so, right, like those contracts under those RFPs, which I'll add were not necessary to conduct an RFP for those contracts. Those are ending. Well, I'll just tell y'all, the council has contracts with every Fellows and Family Center, well, 9 of them, and they're ending on June 30th. Well, we've wrote new contracts to begin July 1st. And, you know, and that happens every year. So it's no different. So I'm going to share my screen, which to me is the most significant part of the RFP. Is 1.1.9, and this is what struck me is the RFP can be canceled if it is determined to be in the state's best interest. And so the questions that have been raised is why stop? It's not whether to issue the RFP, it's why stop funding Fellows and Family Centers. And I think I would agree with Christy Cormier, and I would recommend, and Annie come and raise her hand, is I would recommend that y'all consider communicating clearly that the position of the benefit of having a one-stop shop of Fellows and Family Centers that has been established through Fellows and Family Centers, and not to disrupt that, particularly in COVID-19. It's and without public input, that the fact that these questions are being asked, that nobody knows why it happened, is problematic. And my dog's barking, so that's all. I need to find my screen. I'm sorry. Annie Comer has her hand raised.
Yes, Annie, you have the floor. Yes, Annie.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if this is accurate at all, but or if it's even possible. Is there any way that the DDC can apply for the RFP and then divide it up among the centers, or is that not possible at all?
Yes, it is possible.
Because that to me seems like it would be the easiest solution, so that the centers, everybody gets a little something and no one's possibly left out. But I don't know how much extra work that would be for the DDC. So I was just thinking. Thank you.
That's my chief concern with that option, Annie. It is an option, but it would require a lot more work on our behalf as a staff in particular, and some administrative cost as well. So that would be I'm not saying no to that option at all, but that's my chief concern with that option.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christy Cormier has a comment.
Yes, Christy, you have the floor.
I'm a parent of a 17-year-old daughter with autism. I have been very involved in education previously. For those of you who are new to the council, I was a statewide coordinator for LaTeach for 8 years. So education was a very, very big part of what I lived and breathed. And I worked out of a Families Helping Family Center. Before I did LaTeach, I was actually an education advocate with Families Helping Families. Before that, a board member. Before that, just a parent. And the thing about the Families Helping Family Centers is that they are family directed. So when you call, you are speaking to someone who either has a disability themselves or they have a family member who has a disability. And that is very, very important, because when you were speaking about fears and concerns and you're talking to someone who also understands that, and you're not getting this blanket answer that we generally get from individuals who do not have the experience of our lives and know what those fears are, you stop thinking whenever they say something dumb, and you don't hear anything else that they say. And this RFP seeks to strip that away because it's not a regional center. It is a statewide organization that must serve the state, but not necessarily be someone who's in your backyard or be someone who knows the walk and knows how to speak to families in a respectful way and listen to sometimes the long things that come before the problem. And being able to just decide, oh, well, this might not be best for the state. What does that mean? Does it mean funding wise? Does it mean based on a survey where 10 people responded statewide and 5 of those 10 had complaints? You know, it's very ambiguous. And what I ask of you as my DD council members, as the people who are put in place by federal laws to tell the state, this is how it affects families, how it will affect families not having those FHF centers that are already set up, that are already in their communities. It is going to strip that from those families. And that should be a grave concern to everyone across this state, that things that have been in place for 30 plus years will just be stripped from families. Now, yes, maybe the regional centers can apply for this, but they're going to compete against each other for a statewide contract. And you're going to end up having one regional center work for another regional center. I mean, are we going to support pitting our FHF centers against each other? You know, those are the things that are of grave concern to me. And what I want for my DD council to do is to take a stand and go public with, as the DD council, we do not support this RFP, and we want our FHF centers to continue to be funded in the ways they have been funded so they can continue to support the families within their communities. Because what we know about Louisiana is that we are a diverse population, and people in Southwest Louisiana have a different culture than people in the Shreveport, Monroe, and Alexandria areas. We know that people in the New Orleans area have a different culture than people in the Southwest Louisiana area. So we can't expect that if a center out of Monroe is chosen, that they will be able to meet the culture and the understanding of the people down in Southwest Louisiana or New Orleans. That's why these regional centers have been so important, because they can meet people where they are, because our state is so diverse and our cultures are so diverse.
Thank you.
We have
Yes,
a comment. We have a comment from Katie Corkin in the public about when LDOE issued the RFP in 2017. They stated there will be new and different deliverables included in the contracts than what was included in the previous year's contracts. Sean, do we have any information on that?
I mean, I didn't have, I can see the RFP. I linked it into the alert that was issued in 2017. I mean, I think the biggest difference is they issued an RFP. That was not necessary. It did a couple of different things that actually reduced direct services from Families and Families. Families and Families used to get, I think it was $80,000 from the Department of Ed a year. So they reduced it down to $51,000 in that RFP. They also changed the catchment areas, which, and so I made a map a while back, but to show, but what it did is it made centers do double duty in certain regions, basically, because instead of doing a model that was collaborative across agencies in terms of which has been done for the previous 16, 17 years before that RFP was issued. The Department of Ed used to just contract with Friends and Family Centers based on LDH regions so that there was continuity. So if a parent from, and I'll just pick like, I might get it wrong, but let's say Grant Parish was no longer in Region 6, that now it's in Region 8. Well, that meant that Region 8 had to have staff to do outreach in that parish. And when a parent was asking about home and community-based services and supports, they were given support. And then when it gets to education, was the center supposed to say, sorry, you're supposed to go to that center because that's who the Department of Ed's actually going to be tracking data from? So just that caused, in my opinion, a disruption and to the credit of our families and family centers, they just worked collaboratively with one another and just said, you know, I want to serve whoever comes in my door. If they're in my door already, I'm going to give them support. And, but that RFP was completely unnecessary. Requiring centers to have to apply to it took time, in my opinion. It takes time to write for grants and proposals. And just as this one is. So just the fact that we're even discussing it at all, the fact that y'all been discussing it for an hour when it's completely unnecessary is extremely problematic because there's big issues to deal with instead of something that is not necessary that's going to disrupt and reduce the amount of services. Now, interestingly, when that RFP was issued in 2017, they issued the other RFP for the web-based support. There's nothing against that if they want to fund that too. I think Christy Cormier made some good points. I mean, it's good to have other resources of information, but having a person you can talk to and explain things to is probably the most helpful. And someone that comes from a parent perspective, there's no in my opinion, there's no richer piece of data that parents are going to get when they when they ask for assistance. But they issued an RFP to get that. It's run by Exceptional Lives. And again, nothing against what they do. I think they do a good job. They're not issuing an RFP this year for that because, again, they don't have to. And that's quite interesting. But I think it's concerning that we're talking about this at all, that y'all have been put in a position of having to figure out what to do. And I would agree with Christy and I'll just say, particularly in today's climate where people will question whether the action alert was from me or whatever, I just gave information. Y'all are the voice of the people. Y'all are legislatively hold the position of speaking to policymakers and taking positions when related to the service delivery system. So I'll have to agree with her on that.
All right. Comments? As a committee, we have been discussing this at length for quite some time. So it sounds like we have people that are requesting for us to ask through a formal letter that the department consider removing or taking down the RFP. Do I have, what's the consensus on that as a committee? Do we want to write a letter? Yes, Hyacinth.
We have one more public comment from Karen. I do not believe Families Helping Family Centers will be pitted against each other. They currently have at least one grant that is funded through one center, and funding is shared with other centers. The last comment.
Okay, thank you. So the question I'm asking my committee still stands. Do we want to write a letter requesting the Department of Education to take down or remove their RFP in this matter? Because it's out there, it's already issued. So essentially what we would be doing is saying, as Christy pointed out in her comments to us, we'd be saying that we are against the RFP. Nobody has any comment?
Stephen has a comment.
Stephen?
I'm just thinking whether the better option is to write a letter in support of Families Helping Family Centers and maybe the necessary, I mean, we can always put in the request, and but also to show our support for the centers, the Families Helping Family Centers, while recommending that they pull the RFP. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you, sir. And we certainly do support our Families Helping Family Centers, and that's, this discussion has been because we do, not because we, or because we don't. It's because we do support our centers, and we do want to fully understand the issues.
Crystal White has a comment.
Yes, Crystal, you have the floor.
Hey, I would just say this before we go forward, and I tend to lean towards what Stephen was saying, simply because from what I'm gathering, though there is an RFP and it might not be necessary, it doesn't mean that they can't do it. So we have to have a relationship going forward. We've had one for years and years with LDOE, and we need to continue going forward with them as well. And thinking about our relationship in the future, I'm not sure if they could tell us what to do with an RFP, and if they would appreciate on the other end us telling them what to do with an RFP. And if there's a difference between it being unlawful and unnecessary. So if we just lean towards making our letter towards support of Families Helping Families being more considered, or talk about their track record and how well they have been meeting their deliverables, and in favor of them, from a standpoint going forward relationally, that is where I would lean, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have anything to add? Well, I do agree that we should do a formal letter. And I do agree that we should talk about the fact of the longstanding relationship and existing contracts, and seeing no evidence or hearing no evidence of anything being wrong or the matter with the current situation. I think it would be wise for us to state, given the long history and track record between your department and the centers, you know, we would like to support our network and our centers, and say that we think they do a great job, and we have no reason to think that they wouldn't continue to do so, and we support them fully. And I believe Bambi is on the phone now and has requested to speak. She texted me. So Bambi, are you out there? Can you hear us? If so, you have the floor. I don't know if she can. Okay, I guess she can't. Yes, ma'am. Hyacinth.
Robert Patty has his hand up.
Yes, Robert.
you know, we're talking about us having a relationship with the Department of Education. And to me, I just think a relationship also goes both ways. And I think it's responsible for us to be able to state that we do disagree with the need for an RFP, that we do see a problem where this would harm our centers. So I see nothing wrong with writing a letter stating our concerns.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Sean, Bambi texted me and she said she's on the line, but she's muted and she would need someone to unmute her so that she can speak. She'd like to speak on the issue.
It appears that Crystal White has her hand up.
Yes, Crystal. Crystal, you have the floor.
She may have forgotten to remove her hand. Robert Patty's hand is up as well. I'm assuming
Okay.
he forgot to remove his hand too
Okay.
as well.
Thank you for your comments, Robert. Do you have any others? Okay. All right, so I guess now the question is,
I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out what Bambi's number is, because there's a few numbers. And I
it's
have
337.
Oh, no, I haven't. No, there's 3337 numbers, so I've got her.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Bambi, you're on.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Bambi, you have the floor.
Yeah, so I just want to add to some of the comments that, you know, I agree with Christy's points that she had made earlier in regards to our Families Helping Families, that's the reason why they exist. You know, I feel like the council needs to make, you know, a stand that not only that we support our Families Helping Family centers, but that to do this in a time of unprecedented issues in our world and in our education system, to do this is just not prudent. So if anyone wants to dispute data or dispute anything else, that's okay to do that at another time, or even the form of the way that the contract is done. But right now, our families need consistency, and I think whatever letter is written, that needs to be explicit that our families need consistency in the resources that they've been getting in their communities, in their regions for over 20 years. And that's it. Thank y'all.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the question before the committee is, how do we want to word our letter? There needs to be a letter, that's obvious. I think everyone agrees on that. And so the question before us as a body, and you know, I want to hear from y'all. How do you think we should word it? Yes, Hyacinth.
It seems like hearing there are two major concerns with this RFP that I'm gathering that perhaps maybe the DD Council can consider writing the concerns for. First of all, we can't do anything about so much an RFP. That's just a process. You know, a state agency has the right to put out an RFP. I'm not certain what we can do with that. But we can mention, like Christy said, and I'm hearing from Christy, I'm hearing from Bambi, and there are other people in the public saying how it affects our families in the time of this COVID crisis. And I think that's what's really got my ear.
Yes.
That's kind of, I'm in that arena now, because when you start talking about a crisis, folks don't need any additional disruption, because that brings on more anxiety and more uncertainty.
Yes, it does.
So I think hearing from the public comments on that end, I can agree that this was not the best timing to perhaps issue this RFP. I think the timing is important right now. It's crucial. And I think maybe taking the position that we need to ensure that our families have a sense of consistency, especially during a time of crisis. So I think the timing is an issue. The other comment that I'm hearing is also, and I did read the RFP, I do have some concerns that the RFP does not have a whole lot of information on how families will be working with families. And I think that, or individuals, or people with disabilities, or self-advocates, I don't see any of that in the RFP. It speaks more of a professionals will, it seems more professionally led or professional driven. I did see that the entity that's applying for the grant did make mention about they need to develop a plan on how to deliver education and training. But again, the lacking the connection with the family from the family perspective, I just didn't pick it up in the RFP. So those are the two concerns that I have. But I think right now, the COVID-19 crisis, the timing, I think is something that the council should consider. You know, why now? Why now? And I think this might be kind of hard for families to be adjusted, adjusting to such a drastic
Any new changes to the system?
change when we're in crisis. That's my biggest concern.
Understood and shared, actually. I do think that anything that is done by either us or any entity that could make a process more, I won't say complicated, but more not as well understood how to approach services, not as well understood how they'll be delivered, I think does not serve the community well. And that I'm not, the department has the right to do as it wishes with its
Absolutely.
its
Right.
policies and money. But having said that, we are in a position to look out for the complete interest of our community. And at this time, it is difficult on us to, and I use us globally as a group, on us as a community to have to consider this RFP and how to meet it, how best to meet it.
Stephen has a comment.
Yes, sir, Stephen.
I agree with what Dr. McKee was saying, and I also would like the fact that the letter would include how the FHF centers are different from these professional centers that may apply, and how they are family driven. And I think that makes it a strong point as to why Families Helping Families is able to provide these services, because they can walk the walk and they can talk the talk. So if we can somehow include that in the letter, I think that adds great value to it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mary, do you have anything to add?
I like doing the letter of support about the Families Helping Families, and just kind of writing out something that says that, especially now when we have an uncertain education process due to COVID-19, that the families need to have a consistent, proven approach to help families. And right now is not the time to make process changes. So I support that, and I think that a letter would be appropriate. Maybe we can kind of draft something and then send it out to to get it approved. I know it's after we've been on the call for a while. I think we were supposed to be, was supposed to be 10 to 12 today.
Right.
So I don't know that we're going to get the letter drafted and vote on the other stuff.
No, but do you want,
Just point of order. I mean, Randall,
sir.
I suggest you get a motion in a second.
That's what I was about to do.
Yeah, and I have written something. I just need, y'all can tweak it if you want. It's not going to speak to everything in the letter. Y'all can decide how y'all do that. We're not going to write a letter over this meeting.
No. But what I'm asking for here is the authority to write the letter.
Mhm. Right. I just think you need a motion in a second. And
I
then,
do.
yeah, that's right. Okay.
And so what I'm asking for is the authority from you, my executive committee, to draft the letter to the Department of Education stating that we think that in this time, in this climate, with the concerns over the COVID-19 and all of the undue stress and pressures that puts on the entire state and everyone in it, that we think this is a time where changes to a delivery system such as our education should not be considered at this time. Essentially.
I will make a motion for the letter that we given authority or given a support to write a letter to Department of Education in support of the current processes we have in place through Families Helping Families.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So do I have a motion and a second? So do I have any abstentions to this motion? Any objections to this motion? Hearing none, this motion has carried.
Randall, whoa.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, because you have people on
YouTube.
on YouTube. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And maybe you should give a time frame of like 30 minutes for people to respond. You did get one email from somebody
Okay.
on the
All right.
motion.
That's what I need to know. Okay. Well, then we will let's give a 30-minute window for comment from our YouTube public on the matter.
30 minutes.
Can we put up the motion again? All right. Does anybody think we need less than 30 minutes?
I do. Oh, am I on mute? I do. I think 30 minutes is, why do we need 30 minutes? I'm sorry.
Well,
long.
I'm just trying to give enough time for consideration. All this is up for, this is what this is about.
Right. I'm sorry, Randall, because if we were not virtual, we wouldn't allow 30 minutes. I just think that's an long amount of time.
That's fine.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Can we agree to shorten that somewhat? There's
So,
a comment here by Karshonda Corley. I believe we need to explain how Families Helping Families is not only providing services in the educational arena in Baton Rouge. FHF Greater Baton Rouge is also incorporated into Children's Hospital. That's a public comment from YouTube. Thanks, Hannah, for that. Thanks, Karshonda, for your comment.
okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Karanda, and thank you, Hannah, for bringing it to our attention. Well, I have no problem with it being 10 minutes. But we need to give a little bit of time because it is an electronic delay. Did anybody else have anything to add?
I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are we going back to discussing the Zoom meeting right now, or are we gonna?
We can. That would allow time for, if I'm going to give 10 minutes for people to respond to the RFP motion,
I just have some
or letter motion.
clarification questions that I wanted to ask, but whenever. we're
Yeah,
ready.
that will give us time to do, yeah, we can go ahead and have that discussion, I think.
Yeah, you had 2 public comments. I'm going to share them and I will read them if you want.
Yes, please do, sir.
Okay. You have one comment. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with my finding out where my cursor is. You had one comment from Bambi Polozola. She says, "Thank you for your leadership. Virtual participation has long-term implications on expanded access for attending and participation. We all know that people with disabilities and their families, caretakers have always had more difficulty being able to participate in in-person meetings. There's a great opportunity for us to make significant improvements in systemic practices. It's a work in process. Let's all be cooperative and supportive through this fine-tuning of procedures. It's an honor to work with all of you in our advocacy community." That concludes Bambi's Pozola's comments. The next comment is from Christy Cormier. And Christy's comment was, participation in meetings open until end of meeting. DDC staff to monitor and respond to comments in the chat box, letting commenters know how to raise their hand and process of recognition by chair prior to making comments. All participants who join be sent notification of rules governing protocols for Zoom meetings and making public comment. I think there may be a function for this via Zoom. Also may be a way to display protocols in waiting room. The chair or DDC staff being able to mute or unmute those recognized by the chair for their time to make comment. Although I'm not sure if Zoom allows that option, letting committee members keep control of their mute, unmute functions. Finally, live streaming via YouTube be for viewing. If someone wants to make public comment, they need to join the Zoom meeting and follow protocols for public comments, as meetings will be long and drawn out. I'm unclear why someone would have access to YouTube and email and not Zoom. And then Robert's Rules of Order does not go away. She's signing. Christy Young Cormier, CYC.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for your comments. Bambi and Christy. So Stephen, you had questions or concerns beyond that?
Yes, it was just some clarification. So for the Zoom meetings, will we still have access to things like transcriptionists, closed captioning, and other accommodations? And also, if a participant would need these specific accommodations, how would they go about requesting it?
Same process as we've had before. And the simple answer is yes. The more complicated answer is, it's what I've seen is it's not as clean cut yet. Zoom does allow a transcriptionist service. It seems that the transcriptionist we usually use, who's really, really good, her device doesn't link into Zoom. So if like someone can type as fast as everyone talks on a regular keyboard, that would be one mechanism. If someone requests, like we usually don't do transcriptionists for executive committee meetings. We do it for our regular meetings. I saw it, Bambi's GACTA meeting, she had it. It was a little shaky, wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing. We could also have, if someone wants a translator, we will of course provide that if it's requested. There's the same, I think it's a 72-hour window, where we need to schedule someone that remains in our standard protocol. If we have a meeting, we just need to know if someone needs that accommodation. And usually we can fill it sooner, but we can't always guarantee it if we don't get it soon enough. So same rules, I think that's one of the things that Christy Young Cormier, is like, nothing goes away. Accommodations, Robert's Rules of Order, all of it, to me, stay the same. It's how, figuring out how we navigate it in this setting to make it happen. So, good question. So I don't know if you want me to share the motion y'all have.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Yeah, yes, sir. So here's the motion. See if I can blow it up for y'all a little bit that y'all are considering right now. That's the motion on the floor.
Okay, and it's been made and seconded. So
Yes, sir.
are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have any abstention to the motion? Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, this motion has carried. Okay.
And Randall, may I, just so everybody else knows, and committee members as well, if y'all do object, y'all should hit no. And if you accept, you should click yes. And so I don't think it's, particularly in this forum, so he asked he asked if y'all all agreed, and my request to y'all is if you agree to click the yes button, and you could click the no button if you object. And that way we could tell him if anyone objects, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Okay.
Yes.
Then let's do that then. Let's do the if you agree, hit yes. If you object, hit no.
If you abstain, raise your hand.
If you abstain, raise your hand.
I have 3 yeses.
So I had to jump back on the phone instead of internet, so I'm trying to see how to raise my hand by the phone.
I don't think you'll be able to do that by phone, Sean.
Well,
Yeah.
you're not. They'll have to record our voice vote, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat with you.
Yeah.
So I'm a yes for this motion. So you have.
I'm a yes as well.
Look at my
Good.
God.
So this motion carries.
Now you want to go back to your vote on the Defense and Families?
Yes, it's been about 10 minutes now, hasn't it? Or close to it?
Yeah, let me check your in my info box. You do not have any further comments from email at info@ladc.org.
Okay. Any other in the Zoom chat function?
I don't know if y'all read Karanda's.
We did. Hyacinth did.
And then Hannah just posted one.
Okay. Is it one you'd like to share, or is it
It's
just-
Linda Kocher. I'm not sure if that's a pronunciation of her name. As the parent of a grown child with a developmental disability, I absolutely agree that change, especially unexpected change, can be devastating.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Thank you all for your participation and comments today. So we have a motion and a second, do we not?
Yeah, I'll pull it back up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Here's the motion. It's for the chairman to send a letter to LDE and Bessie expressing support for Friends and Family Center, Regional Resource Centers, and recognize the need for consistency and a proven approach of support of these Friends and Family Centers have provided to parents and students with disabilities for decades, particularly as everyone is burdened with issues posed by COVID-19. Friends and Family Centers in a unique position to provide the perspective of a parent. Um,
I believe that Christy has sent an email. Am I right about that?
Not about this. She had sent
Okay.
one about her thing was about Zoom protocols.
Okay. Okay. Well, we,
Unless I'm missing, I'm refreshing my box. She did. My bad.
okay.
Oh, I got two. So I'm just going to show you all my other screen. I'm sorry. It'll just be faster than me working.
That's all right.
So y'all can see my screen, and this is Lacey Polizola's comment here. I want to say I appreciate all of you for recognizing the importance of the education RFP and supporting the Fountain Family Centers. The work they do and the experience they provide can never be replaced by anyone else. I'm saying this as a parent that has received this help from multiple centers, and I'm now in a position to help guide others because of them. Thanks again for your support. Thank you, Lacey Polizola. Next comment is by Christy
Thank you,
Young,
Lacey. Okay.
Cormier. I do not feel like it is good for the state to seek this RFP during the current COVID-19 pandemic. Changing services to families of students with disabilities is something that totally flies in the face of family support. The current system of support funded by LDOE, being Regional Family Centers, provides a type of peer support that is proven to be the most effective for families. You speak with someone who has walked the walk and understands the unique circumstances and struggles of families like ours. The council's role is to inform state leadership on how proposed policy will affect people with developmental disabilities. This RFP hurts those you represent, especially during this time. Regional Family Centers meet the diverse cultural makeup of our state, and having one agency serving the entire state will potentially miss the mark on this critical point. This has a potential of further harm to people with developmental disabilities. I encourage the council to include support for fully funding regional centers that are family directed to, and then she signed off.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you, Lacey. Your comments are noted.
You, Randall Brown.
Dr. McKee has her hand raised.
Yes, Dr. McKee.
I was waiting for the motion to come up to see if we can just make a slight adjustment on that last sentence before we second it.
I think I need to clean up all the sentences. I think I have like a 5-line sentence.
Okay. I just was,
You know, that's when I'm trying to type everything y'all say in one huge sentence.
We understand.
If you want me to clean up the logistics of it, it captures the essence of what y'all said.
no, it was just something I wanted to just note at the last sentence, well, the second sentence that you.
I think the whole thing's awkward, to be honest with you. I think the expression is clear.
Expression is clear, yeah.
If you give me permission to do a technical edit and just I would break it up into 2 or 3 sentences and maybe change ever so slightly with keeping the verbiage, but I think it's clear what y'all intend to do, but you can change it however you want. It's Mary's motion. You're on mute. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Eisen.
Sorry. There was something I wanted to add on that last sentence. It said perspective of the parents, but I wanted to say parents, families, self-advocates, just encompass, everyone that families helping families serve and work with. Because when you're in the educational process, you have self-advocates. When they get to high school, they're,
Yes.
Yeah. We lost Steve and Randall. Do you want to ask for a vote? And would y'all press yes unless you want phone, do a verbal, please?
I'm still here.
Thank you.
Okay, you're still present. Good. All right. So we've made the changes we need. And the intent, and I've heard everyone's comments today and taken them to heart, and I will be drafting the letter soon. And assuming this passes, of course. And so let's have our vote on the motion Mary has presented. And do I have, and remember to use your buttons, yes or no, or raise your hand if you abstain. Do I have any objections to this motion? Any abstentions to this motion?
There are 2 yeses. I don't see any abstentions. 3 yes.
Yeah.
Mike, you're a yes?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so there are 4.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm a yes, so that's 5.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Motion passes.
All right, motion has passed. Thank you all. Now we're ready for our last item, right?
Yes, sir.
And that is discussion of our legislative agenda and suggestions there.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to?
Yeah.
add?
So the Revenue Estimating Conference has not yet determined how much revenue they think, and this is before COVID-19, mind you, how much revenue they thought was available for the state. So the amount of money that the governor was working with was in LDH's budget, which is where most of our funding advocacy lied. It was $103 million shy of what the Department of Health felt like they needed to continue services. There was a presentation by LDH yesterday. I'll note a couple of things. They mentioned explicitly yellow shirts and the council and Lacan, and the, I guess, recognition to keep, in mind what advocates have implored them to keep intact all this time. House Bill 105 actually has a statement in it that they cannot, let me see if I can pull it up. I'll share it with y'all because I think this speaks to, where am I? Yeah, I think this is the right one. But y'all, does it say Jefferson Parish Human Service Authority in the middle of the screen? Is that what y'all see? Okay.
Yes.
This is House Bill 105, which is the main budget bill on page 65. This statement on lines 23 and 24 tells LDH that they shall not reduce payments for disability waiver services. I think first and foremost that y'all need to I just accept how critical that is of previous advocacy to have legislators write that in, that's something that we will not have to go into fight for to maintain those services.
That is phenomenal.
It's phenomenal.
It is.
It's really hard for me to wrap my head around how big that is. Because what I want to tell you is what many of y'all know is the current budget, the budget before the impact of COVID-19 had less money than LDH. So most of the discussion yesterday was how they were going to deal with hospitals and other services, et cetera. However, there are many other services for people with developmental disabilities that are not contained in waivers. You have pediatric day healthcare centers, you have long-term supports, you have EPSDT, you have a number of different places that can still be impacted negatively as we go through this budget process. The state revenues are expected to get hit drastically due to the hit on, nobody's spending money, taxes aren't rolling in. I don't have a projection. The Revenue Estimating Conference will meet tomorrow, but you know, when the barrel of gas is going to negative, and you know, I mean, that was it's Louisiana's revenue is going to get hit pretty hard, and so I've had discussion with like the providers, ARC Louisiana. Don't think it's realistic to think we're going to get funding for like rate restorations or spas, or even like the $500,000 for families and family centers of state general funds. I think that would be a difficult expectation to come to realization. And I think that some services that are considered optional in Medicaid, and mind you, I want to give credit to Cindy Reeves of the Department of Health. You know, she was the spokesperson yesterday. No one thinks they're optional. They all understand they're critical services. But in the Medicaid state plan, they're deemed optional because they're not required by the federal government.
Right.
Medicaid. Well, unfortunately, that's what gets looked at for cuts because it's where they can cut and COVID-19 has presented some other obstacles of they can't take people off of Medicaid rolls. And so they were, in a normal course of business, people are rolling off Medicaid rolls. And so that's consuming more funding, more resources even there that they're struggling with. All that being said is I do think y'all should consider whether it's best to, and my recommendation would be to preserve the service levels that are currently in existence rather than pursuing all the things that were on the council's advocacy agenda. That I think that's the position we're going to be in. Cameras in special education classrooms, those bills are not moving forward. So that was, you know, about $8 million that won't be on the table, if you will. But budget wise, you know, rate restoration and funding for skilled nursing in homes is, I mean, I think that I'm not sure if that lawsuit will still pressure the department to have to address skilled nursing, but you know, but in terms of DSPs, I'm not sure to expect an increase in rates would be advisable at this time.
All right.
That's all.
Okay, thank you, sir. Well, yes, Hyson.
You're on mute, ma'am.
You're on mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
It's all right.
Comments. I should know better. Karen's mentioning, what is the status of the $500,000 for FHF centers if the RFP for the SDE contracts is pulled? And Cody's trying to send us something via download, but I can't seem to open it up. I don't know if someone else can get it open so you can see in the box. Are we still on this discussion for LDOE as it relates to FHF centers, or have we already moved past that? Because I believe Karen.
We've already voted on the issue, but if you have a relevant comment, you're free to share it.
Well, Karen has that question. What is the status of the $500,000 for FHF centers if the RFP for the SDE contracts is pulled?
No, I think Sean just answered it in
He
his.
just answered that. Okay.
Yeah. We don't expect.
Okay.
Given the conditions, the economic conditions due to COVID, it looks like we're not expecting the revenue that we really don't know, but we're expecting for things to not be as good as they would have been. And so any additional spending, it sounds like, is not advisable because it's not likely to happen in this climate, is what I basically just got out of that. If anybody has anything to add or a different perspective, please share.
Karen, and I think Karen was actually directed that to the budgetary discussion. Thanks, Karen, for clearing that up. Cody wants to send gratitude to the DD Council for echoing her and supporting her. Let's see, the comments made in appropriations yesterday. Liz Gary has her hand for comment, for a question.
Yes, Liz, you have the floor.
Hi, it's not really a comment. I just kind of wanted to reiterate, I was watching the LDH yesterday when they were presenting, and I think it's important to mention that Cindy Reeves did talk about several things, and I'm going to quote her because I wrote them down and I re-listened to it several times. But she did say that services cannot be cut. They cannot reduce any benefits of any Medicaid clients. And this is related to the feds and the enhanced FMAP, that in order to get the enhanced MAP and continue, that they cannot cut any of the Medicaid clients. She also stated that they were limited in cutting the optional slide that she showed us, which was basically, of course, the optional programs that we all talk about. But one of the things she did say that was very concerning, and I think we need to know about it, and I'm thinking maybe the council needs to address it, is she did state that they were saying, how can we save money? And she says, I think rates are one of them that we can address. She said, you gave a rate increase, and she was speaking to the legislator. She says, you gave a rate increase to home and community-based services. If you want, you would be able to roll that back. But then she went on to say that we have to maintain access to care, and we cannot cut provider groups that are already struggling. So I think it's critical that although we're saying we're not cutting optional programs, I think it's very important that we do not allow them to cut provider rates, because that is putting a risk of the optional programs. If we don't have the providers there and the workers to work, then we're back at stage one. So I don't know if there's any plan to have anybody send in emails or testify for anything on Monday. Obviously, people do not want to go to the Capitol, but it is public testimony. And I think it's important that we address what she stated to ensure that they don't even remember. We have a lot of new legislators who do not know the history and how long we've been fighting in the things. And I think it's important for them to realize that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Liz. Okay. Does anybody have?
Crystal White has a hand up.
Yes, Crystal, you have the floor.
Hi, yeah, this is kind of what I was wanting to say along with Liz. I too watched appropriations yesterday, and I think it's important to note that they did present those optional services. So I'm not going to use exact numbers, but I'm going to use rough numbers. And so we have a very small bucket of dollars that they can reduce from. Those optional services. They have to reduce about $100 million, a little over. And of those optional services, they're only about $800 million worth of those optional services. So that's a big piece of that optional pie. And I just wanted to, for everyone, if we could get that list that they showed of those optional services, it was about 20 of them, because a lot of those optional services programs affect our population. And so if we're not going to ask for more money, I think we should at least be sending in our testimony on Monday as our Appropriations Committee requested. Send them by email in support of those optional services that affect our community. And they are equally as important for everything, especially in our lives. And even though they're not waiver services, I know those are protected, and we should also be equally thanking our representatives for finally listening, not finally listening, but for listening to us and hearing us. And now we don't have to reiterate that same thing we've been saying for years to protect our waiver services. They've done it for us. So I think that's wonderful. And we can always, of course, praise and not just send emails for criticism. But I would also say by Monday, if we could let people know that those, take a look at those optional services and just make sure they're not going to affect too many of our people, because a lot of those things are really being looked at to be cut. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Crystal. Yes, Hyacinth.
Christy Cormier has a question, but before a question, Brenton wanted to comment and let everyone know that you can submit public comment on the budget to andresk@legis.la.gov in lieu of an in-person testimony, but you have to submit it by Sunday at noon. Just needed to say that. And then Christy Cormier has a question. Is Act 378 money set to be cut?
Okay, Sean, do we have the direct answer to that? I think the answer to that question is a no, but do we have an answer for Christy on that?
I would not say that's a no.
Okay.
I mean, Act 378 are state dollars. I think they're very, very much at risk. Let me just tell y'all how it generally happens is every agency's asked to do scenarios of where they will make the cuts. And so every LGE, every human service district and authority will be asked to shoulder their share of the cuts. Now, they'll figure out where they can make cuts if they won't fill a position or whatever it is. But no, it could absolutely impact anything. I mean, really, it's now they have that, they have to put so much percentage of their state general funds, but if all their state general funds are reduced, that will automatically reduce that 9% that they have to put towards IFS.
Right.
Yeah, so it's
so yes.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, sir. So do I have any further comment? Any comment from the committee? I think it is prudent for us to let our legislators know that, we appreciate the efforts they've made to protect our waiver population in this crisis. It's definitely going to be a budgetary crisis. We know that. We just don't know the extent of which yet. I do think it's prudent and wise for everyone to email in their concerns and comments with regard to our services, as far as those that could be cut or eliminated. And as Sean just reiterated, that's basically everything else except for waivers, correct? So I think that it's wise to ask our community to email the legislators and let them know the importance of our programs, all of them, and what they mean to our community. Now, do we want to do an action alert, or is there time for that for Monday?
Yeah, I mean, we have one drafted. I'll tweak it a little bit, but we have one drafted ready to roll.
Okay, good.
So
we definitely want to get that out there so the public can be aware that they have that mechanism to let the legislators know via email their concerns on the budget and questions related to our services. So if we can get that rolled out today, I think that'd be great. The committee have anything else to add? Okay, does that conclude our business today, Sean? I don't see anything else on my agenda. Is there something I'm forgetting?
no.
Okay. And so I guess I need a motion to adjourn.
Ms. Hyacinth.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, Stephen has made a motion to adjourn. Dr. McKee has seconded. Our business for today is concluded. Thank you everyone for your service today, and thank you everyone who participated in giving us feedback and questions. We appreciate you.